It's another day, another opportunity to do business here in Business Morning. You're welcome to Channels Television. I'm Eni John McQuarrie. Well, this morning, if you tried to use your WhatsApp, you found out that it had gone down. It was not just you; it was millions of people across the world: Nigeria, the UK, Singapore, India. Tens of thousands of people reporting that they're unable to send or receive messages. Down Detector, which tracks outages, said more than 57,000 reports of problems had been submitted as at 8 a.m. With issues first detected about just before 8. But I would like to inform you that just before this program started, there are reports that restoration has started. So you can try that WhatsApp again, and you may be able to send or get that message you've been struggling with for some time. Away from that now, let's look at what's going on in Nigeria. The federal government here in Nigeria has launched a national agro-industrial processing zones program, and it's aimed at ensuring food security and leveraging the opportunities created by global food supplies disruptions occasioned by the war going on in Ukraine and climate change. We've been seeing a lot of flood that has affected farmers. Speaking at the official launch of the program in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, expressed his optimism about the program's ability to address the country's unemployment and food security challenges in less than a decade.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is flanked by members of the Federal Executive Council, representatives of the Africa Development Bank, as well as the International Fund for Agricultural Development, as a special agro-processing zones program is launched in Abuja. The $538 million program is a government-enabled and private sector-driven initiative that will mobilize investors and develop agriculture value chains for selected crops and livestock production.
The successful implementation of the 8 SAPs state is expected to create up to 550,000 additional new jobs and contribute up to about 10 million USD to Nigeria's economy annually.
The Vice President of Nigeria,
Professor Yemi Osinbajo, highlights the benefits of the program.
If the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones program delivers on its objectives, and we have no doubt that it will, then we would, in less than a decade, deal a fatal blow to food insecurity. We will create millions of good-paying jobs, and we will create an agro-industrial opportunity such as has never been seen on this continent, at least.
The processing zones will initially be rolled out in 7 states and the Federal Capital Territory, estimated to create 550,000 direct jobs.
Nigeria is the leading country in Africa, and if Nigeria is hungry, Africa is hungry. The only way we can stop African hunger is to ensure that every single dollar, every single coin coming out of this project has its manifestation in practical results. The criticism of that will lead to the food sufficiency that we all seek.
$538 million has been approved for the creation of these special zones, which the federal government believes will guarantee the country's food security in the years to come.
Well, we'll talk about food security and other related matters at the Commodities corner. And to have that conversation with us this morning is Bolanle Agbaje. Good morning, Bolanle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, good morning.
This morning. And then I don't know if you listened to that report about the agro-processing, the launch by the president, the federal government. And, well, a lot of initiatives going on to try to boost supply of food.
Yes.
But, I mean, some people would say we're not dealing with the basics yet, which would be, yesterday I spoke to one of our guests about the issue of mechanized farming. issue of insecurity, because even with the peasant farmers and their production, for some time now, the issue of insecurity has stopped them from going to the farms. Now we have the issue of the flood that has wiped away, I mean, harvest worth billions of naira, according to even what we have heard. We can't even calculate everything, you know. So some people would say, I mean, launches or initiatives like this, industrial zones, they are applaudable, but have we dealt with the basics yet?
So you just have so many issues that, you know, lead to other issues that they can't, you know, that make matters worse. So you have on one hand poverty that obviously leads to the insecurity. You have the fact that there are no jobs, unemployment levels are very high. You have the fact that, you know, farmers are suffering in terms of, you know, lack of funding to help, you know, increase production when it comes to their yields from farming. And when you're even talking about the fact that things are mechanized, you're talking about the fact that you need funding. And what has the government, you know, been mentioning? The fact that there's no money in the system. So when, you know, you're thinking of how to boost, you know, the farmers' yields at this in the short term, in fact, you know, it's a situation where most of these government officials, it's quite tight for them because there's no funding in the system. But as long as we do have the rule book, which is what they're trying to create, in any sense, as a response to, you know, what some of these international agencies have called, you know, attention to severally, I think, you know, this flooding that has been unprecedented for most of these government officials is something that has already pushed, you know, for these kinds of initiatives to make sure that in any fact, you know, you cannot do anything about flooding. Unfortunately, we're in a position where, you know, things like that would affect, you know, our country, but it's how we respond to it and how we prepare, you know, ourselves whenever this kind of flooding comes in the future. But in any case, I'm sure, you know, we have to appreciate and applaud the fact that, you know, they're coming up with some initiatives, and we do hope that...
I don't know, because the president just gave the Minister of Water Resources 90 days to come up with a plan.
The pressure is on.
Yeah, okay, the pressure is on, but I don't know what are we going to achieve with this? Even if the minister comes up with a plan, you know, after 90 days or before 90 days. What about the implementation of the plan when there's politics in the air? 90 days is 3 months, so we're going into November, December, January, and then election is in February. So are we really being realistic?
I think the better way to look at it is the fact that even if there's not something big coming out of it, there would be something small to tweak, you know, in the system of, you know, increasing water production for some of these farmers. So I think the only positive way to look at it...
By then, the rains are gone. By then, we're occupied with politics, Bolanle. I don't understand.
Yes, no, like, it's a sad situation for Nigeria, and we've been here for a very long time. But instead of, you know, continuously complaining, I think, you know, the positive way or positive wins that we can take from it is just little initiatives that can actually push us forward. And then as time goes on, we all know obviously the elections will come and go, but what happens after the elections, you know, hopefully you know, some of these plans that, you know, they come up with in terms of increasing water production, in terms of, you know, the mechanisms to increasing farm production would, you know, play in after the elections.
Don't forget that the president also formed a committee, an economic committee, how many months ago? Now, I don't know, I've not heard of, you know, what they're doing at this time. I've not gotten an update. Maybe I missed it out in the news. If you could bring me up onto that.
No, so there are definitely many initiatives that they've come up with in terms of, you know, how to push the economy forward. But one thing you have to realize is some of these initiatives would not necessarily play in now because we have so many factors that are beyond our control that are still holding us back. You know, obviously we have those factors that Nigeria could have worked on, but if you had not worked on some of these factors to do with exchange rates, to do with external reserves, if you had not worked on, you know, some of these aspects of the economy prior to what we have now, there's no way you would reap the benefits of that.
That's why the conversation is saying, instead of creating more initiatives and starting, we have $537 million for this now, can we just get tractors? Can we just clear the land? Can we just put the youth or even the present farmers, most of whom are aged, can we just put them into this farm and say, okay, you have lights, you have water, this is tractor, you get this going, you focus on corn, you focus on wheat.
Yeah.
You know, can we just do that, something practical that Nigerians can actually appreciate instead of creating initiatives?
It seems very straightforward that, you know, you just get someone that is accountable and would be responsible for the outcome of some of these initiatives. But I don't know, it just seems like something just gets missing when it comes to, you know, implementing some of these initiatives.
And bureaucracy,
whether the bureaucracy, the corruption aspect of it, and the fact that, you know, some of them are actually incompetent. Some of them that are in, you know, some of these head positions are actually incompetent.
You know, sometimes, I mean, I know we're broadcasters and we're just supposed to report, but we live in Nigeria.
Yes,
we feel the pinch.
Yes,
you know, sometimes it can really
burn. Yes,
you know what I'm saying. But I mean, let's move on to Moody's. It's not like it's great news anyway. Where Moody downgraded Nigeria again
to obviously make, you know, loans very expensive. That it was already expensive, and I'm sure now they have to factor that in the budget as well. The fact that it's going to be way more expensive to, you know, get funds from abroad, and I'm sure that, and even our borrowing, the payback for our borrowing would obviously be more expensive, and I
think the dollar is still surging.
Yes, you know, unfortunately for us, the dollar is still surging. You know, the fact that, you know, the America is just doing what it has to do right in terms of, you know, boosting interest rates and making sure they bring the economy back to where it, you know, was without, you know, causing any type of recession. So unfortunately, we are feeling the heat like we always do. Emerging market economies always are the receiving end for what, you know, happens with these Western economies. But I think it's just bad news all around that topic.
Yeah, but okay, at least the minister has said they're going to look inwards. Can we see a little bit of benefit from that? Can we say maybe investors in Nigeria? Because I think at the markets now, the fixed income and the equities market, we have more of local players more than foreign. I think foreign, most of them have left.
Well, in a case when you have, you know, inflation rates higher than, you know, what's the real interest you'd actually get from some of these investments, it's quite hard to get, because investors are not dumb out there. They're always looking for the best outcome that they can get, or best returns that they can get to their investments. And if you have inflation rates skyrocketing like that and lack of, you know, stability when it comes to policies, no unified exchange rates, obviously that would deter them the same way it deters, you know, foreign investors.
So where will people put the money? They'll put their money somewhere.
Yeah, so you have quite a lot of investors putting money abroad because, you know, they have more integrity there. But so a lot of people there are always questions around investing in Nigeria. But I'm sure there are definitely a lot of investors still within Nigeria, the Nigerian space, because the equity markets had done well for, you know, quite a while in the beginning of the year. And so we do know that I'm sure that they're waiting to look for where.
Do you think they're taking advantage of the dip at this time?
Yes, of course. Every investor will take advantage of the dip.
You think so?
Yes, because, you know, right now everybody knows that we were more or less getting to the bottom part of it. Yes, and, you know, it's only up from there. So at some point,
but
you don't want
to get in on your way down. You want to get in down when you're down.
But in any fact, the prospects for 2023 and 2024 are quite, you know, it's looking good for us, hopefully. I think by that time, regarding of what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, most economies would actually find a balance and exclude, you know, those facts. And that's very sad on globalization, because we had done a lot to bring economies, you know, together for so long. And now most economies are looking for ways to make themselves stand and benefit in-house.
Like Egypt. Egypt, I think they've boosted their local wheat production more than 20%.
Yes, and
since July.
Another news that, you know, just came up is Senegal. Senegal is the top largest, or top 3 when it comes to the largest producer of peanuts, and the largest consumer would be China. And it's looking good for them for the 2023 to 2024 year. Actually, 2022 to 2023 year of about 1.8 million metric tons, which is huge. And so you have, you know, African economies actually doing, you know, great.
Nigerian
and some of them are actually looking to Nigeria to make sure that we get it right. Because
so which of these commodities? I mean, we've talked of cocoa, where Nigeria is number 3.
Yes.
We have the ability to be
Yes.
number 1. We've talked about palm oil, where countries like Malaysia came to, you know, take the fruits from here.
Yes.
Peanuts, I don't know if we have a lot of potential
I'm
there.
not too sure about that, but I think one that we could look inwards to is the rice, because at some point, you know, the news came out that we were self-sufficient in the production of rice, but that obviously that's not the case.
Self-sufficient?
No, that's not the case anymore. But was it
the case at any point? Because when you go to the market, you only see imported rice.
Yes, yes.
You hardly.
No, but there was a period in time when, you know,
when we had the lake rice from Lagos State, the one from Gombe, that was for a Christmas or something like that.
And you still do have people that, you know, patronizing Nigerian rice is actually not as bad as.
No, I think it's availability.
No,
I don't think.
I think it is available, because I've seen it, you know, in many places, and it doesn't taste any. It's
different.
Yeah, it doesn't taste any different.
I've taken it before, and I think it tastes quite nice.
Yes.
But for me, I don't see it around me. So for me, the problem is availability.
Yes. So I guess in some areas you have more of, you know, the foreign rice compared to the Nigerian rice. I guess it depends on what benefits which, you know,
which area, where the market is.
Where the market is, yes. But at the same time, I think we do have the potential to increase production of rice, and also sugar. Sugar is also one that, you know, with the benefit of Dangote and, you know, some other companies, it's sugar is also, because I usually see, you know, those Nigerian produced sugar consumed in many parts of Nigeria.
Yeah, I don't use imported sugar anymore.
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't taste, it actually tastes really nice. So I'm sure it's, you know, those are some of the commodities that we can actually look into in the production. And obviously textile as well. Textile was huge at
that
some
used to
point.
be our glory at some point.
Yes, it was. And I know that there's potential, because you still have some of those factories still, you know, they still exist. All they just need to do is, you know, increase or put in newer technology to make sure that, you know, they're in line with the global standards.
And they're competing. I mean, the competition is really steep for them because of smuggled textiles.
Exactly.
I know there was a time that they were really outspoken about
it. Put their hands on, you know, these smuggled textiles. But it's still the case, and it's an opportunity for Nigerians as well. So those are some of the commodities that we can leverage on.
So what else is happening in the commodity space?
Well, obviously, you know, the prices are still affected by the floods, you know, and that obviously hinders supply compared to, in combination with what was already existing in the market to do with logistics cost. And we're already seeing, you know, some fuel queues in Lagos. We're not really sure what's causing that. I'm hearing...
And it's been on in Abuja for weeks now. Now it's extending to Lagos.
You know, they had mentioned the fact that the depot price of the fuel pump price is you know, at about 180, you know, and that would obviously increase prices to about almost 200 per litre. And obviously prices right now are about 169. So I'm sure it doesn't favor some of these marketers to
We're talking about subsidy
at that.
again.
Yes.
It doesn't look like we can run away from subsidy for long,
so,
because if we're going to spend about 6 trillion naira, I think that's the budget for half a year next year for the subsidy.
With what's going on, it seems like it's going to actually increase. The fact that all prices
it's already
still remain,
up. It's already more than what was budgeted for this year.
Yes, for sure. And right now, you know, all prices are not, they don't seem to taper down significantly. And obviously that would obviously play into the, you know, price, the pump price, yes.
All right, Bolanle Agbaje, thank you so much for having this conversation
Thank you for having
this morning.
Thank
Hope
you
to
for
see you on
me.
Thursday.
Thank you.
God's grace. All right, so these are the economic parameters that we are living with here in Nigeria. We do hope to have a different story soon. So as you go out to vote, as you make your choice of who should be the next governor, the next leader, the next president of Nigeria, I guess we should look out for someone who can actually deal with these issues which are not friendly to the pockets, the purchasing power, the economy of Nigeria at this time. But let's take a break now. When we come back, talking about next year, how are we going to fund that more than about 10.7 trillion naira budget deficits next year? We'll talk about how the federal government is planning to do that next after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. The federal government is planning to sell or concession all the hydropower plants across the country. And also there are more than 25 projects that will be turned into active assets that will be generating money in some ways to the federal government. Some of them will be offered to investors for equity, while others will be totally sold to reduce waste. All this is to fund the 10.7 trillion naira deficit on the 2023 budget. To help us understand how this could work, we have Mr. Paul Alaji, senior economist and partner, SPM Professionals, joining us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Alaji. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
Yeah, so thank God you're an economist. Some Nigerians have heard of this, and they've been afraid that isn't this chipping off our national image? If you talk about some of those national assets, the national theater, you know, and things like that seem to represent Nigeria, the brand and all of that, and it being sold or concession. Isn't it chipping off our national image?
Sales of assets is neither good nor bad. It depends on the process, what you are selling, and what you do with the proceed if eventually argument favors sales. So for some of the asset government had mentioned, those that will be listed, that government will divest, and some that government will sell completely, we need to look at each of them. What is the performance of these assets? For instance, government is hoping by next year, because of PIA, the sales or partial sales of NNPC or making NLPC be going to the stocks so that people can buy, those that have interest can buy shares in NNPC. And if you ask me what has been the performance of NNPC in terms of revenue, one of the ministers had mentioned recently that even though NNPC claimed that he has declared profit in recent years, what has not happened in decades, but they are still looking for the money. And as I speak with you, for more than 6 months to be charitable, but in the real sense, more than 9 months, NNPC has not sent money to FAC account to be shared by different tiers of government. Do we then say that NNPC is profitable? I think as somebody who may want to consider it from business perspective, I would say I'm not very sure. If NNPC spends so much money, still in charge of 4 refineries, that we continue to spend billions of naira to maintain, but we are not even refining up to 1 liter of petrol to ease the pressure that surfaced in Lagos this morning, and what has been in Abuja for a number of weeks now. And it may make some sense to say to give NNPC to private sector to manage without government intervention. But that does not mean government interest in NNPC should reduce to 0. I think government should still have some interest, but to have 100% interest in NNPC, I don't think is very correct. We also have thousands, tens of thousands of assets that are dead, that are not completed, that government cannot manage, such as hotels and so on and so forth, from Bayelsa to Lagos to Kano to Calabar to different parts of Nigeria that government has abandoned over the years. This could be given to those that can help with employment, help with revenue generation, to go to the hand of those that can manage it. Then we can have some level of not just revenue in this budget 2023, but to also have economic re-engineering and economic activation. I heard Minister of Finance had said, Minister of Finance Incorporated. We now come back to mainstream to help government in terms of management of government assets. That is what government investment. That is a welcome idea. But the question now is, what are we going to do with the monies? I give you an instance when government came up a number of years back and said we want to sell PHCN. The question is, do we have more light? Can we say that we have really seen a lot of improvement or same level of improvement in terms of power generation? And this remains one of the fears in the minds of Nigeria. I tell you what happened. Now, when that was sold, significant amount, if not all, the amount was used to pay labor. That is, those that were working at PHCN in form of pension or gratitude, I beg your pardon, gratuity, I beg your pardon, those that were working at that time without any investment going directly into PHCN. And that caused for a lot of worry, because those that took over the business with the expectation they have that if they pay XYZ amount to government will have some part of the money invested into the business. But that is not what we saw. Eventually, they went to central bank to collect loans. Today, we all can bear the witness, and those that are watching us now and those that will watch in future, they could tell whether there has been an improvement in power generation or power distribution, I beg your pardon, in their homes. And this is a big reality government should watch. So beyond putting some of the assets for sale, so there are some assets that government may also want to sell that if they are already performing, I don't think it would be a good idea for government to say they want to sell an asset that is performing. So we need to look critically into the asset, what we want to sell, also the method of valuation. Saudi Arabia put the government enterprise into the market and generated over $25 billion. That was a bit higher than what Alibaba was valued at, and it became a big investment for government. Now, what will Nigeria sell if we sell most of these assets today only on 2023 budget? Recall that the deficit in 2023 budget is more than 50%. This year, 2022, what we expected as deficit is only 7 trillion. It has increased by almost 3 trillion. What will be the increase when the next person gets to office and we are still faced with economic quagmire, we are still faced with high inflation, we are still faced with poor exchange rates, we are still faced with a number of issues in our economy? What
all right, Mr. Laje, I certainly
reinvest this back into the economy. I
certainly feel your passion, and I'm glad you brought up that issue with NEPA, PHCN, because I mean we're living with it. And the question you ask, I think, is rhetoric, because you're in your home, we're in Nigeria, we know what's going on with power supply and all that. And, very salient issues you've brought up there about the modality of it, how it is done. Is it transparent? Is it being sold to the people who should get it? What happens to the revenue? What happens if the next administration comes and we're still seeing the austere situation that we have at this time? What else would they sell? So obviously, these are very hard questions that would need to be faced. But what should Nigerians be doing now? Because yes, we read the news and we see the federal government is planning this. How many people can go to Aso Rock and say, no, government, you can't, we don't want you to sell this, or we want to see the process, we want to be sure? What should Nigerians be doing now? What can we do, as Nigerians at this time, following the views you have listed?
Well, I think Nigeria should continue to ask questions, and I have seen that media is really helpful this time. Engaging more, asking questions. Whether we like it or not, government is listening. They may not act, but the truth is that government is listening. We're in a political season, and how you know government is listening is that all the things that have been said, you now see people in opposition at the local government, at state government, and at federal level, bringing those things that have been said, the things that have been done by media, print media, and radio, television. They are bringing it as points where they want to see a difference in how their lives are managed. So that's on one hand. Two, regarding the question I asked, there could actually be an answer regarding what are we going to do, because when you look at 2023 budget, only 5 trillion naira of the budget will go into capital expenditure. So when you borrow approximately 10.7 trillion naira and you are only going to spend half of that in capital expenditure, the question is, where will the remaining half go into? It's going to be on recurrent, or you are going to use it to service that, because now we have changed the template for budgeting into recurrent service and non-service. So you are going to spend half of asset sales or borrowings into. I don't think that is a right approach. I also don't think it's sustainable, and that's how we got ourselves in 40 trillion naira debt. How are we going to pay back? So to answer your question directly, Nigeria should ask questions. And I also think that media houses, which of course several media houses have been doing, and I think you need to be more potent in doing this, call government officials to be more responsible by having maybe interview, town hall meetings, and ask these questions, because this is the best Nigeria can do. And of course, on election day, the power that Nigeria has is to go out to vote and to show whether they are happy with policy of government in their state, in their local government, and of course, at federal level. So that is what Nigerians can do. And I also think Nigeria should continue doing those.
Also be the cost of governance. You've alluded to it, how much will be used on personnel. So cutting the cost of governance may also be one other way to reduce the pressure that leads to this need of selling of assets.
Well, I don't think there's a better way to say it. Cost of governance is definitely impacting our economy negatively. And I can tell you that even if you borrow at 1% for 5 trillion naira, you know what the implications will be. More so that our external debt have started to gallop. And a number of persons have asked, is it not better to borrow externally? You are going to have money flow into the foreign reserve, which is what we should applaud. You get money in your foreign reserve, it gives you some level of balance, but how sustainable is it? Were you going to borrow next month or 2 months' time? So people have given good quality argument for external borrowing. But this remains my argument. When you borrow externally and you devalue your currency, which as an economy we have been susceptible to in the last 30 years, what will happen is that all the monies we borrowed would increase. And I can give you an instance. February 2021, Central Bank of Nigeria emaciated, that's a technical word, say devalued naira. 1 trillion naira was posted by another agency of government called the Debt Management Office as additional debt that Nigeria now has. We did not borrow new money just because that policy of devaluation was made, which central bank cannot do anything about because central bank don't spend the dollar as the last time I checked.
All right, Mr. Alaje. Well, certainly, as you said earlier, Nigerians would have to consider these, as the election gets close. And you also challenge the media. We take that challenge, hoping that the government officials will respond, when we call, because some of them we do call, we don't get response. You send messages, they don't respond, so sometimes the media is stuck in between. We want to carry on the conversation, but if you carry it on without the government, is seen as one-sided. But we will continue pushing, Mr. Alaje. Thank you so much for that. And of course, we're going to engage people like you also to join us in this conversation and responsibility in the nearest future. Thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Alaje.
Thank you so very much for having me.
All right, well, let's move away from that. Not so far away from that, actually, because we're going to the markets in Nigeria. And that is also another reflection of the state of Nigeria's economy. We have Will to give us that. Hey, Will, good morning.
Good morning, Nini.
Yeah, well, at least the market was in the green yesterday.
Yes, it was in the green yesterday.
Even though we're still 44,000
and still at the 24 trillion
mark. So, but I mean, let's rejoice or celebrate the little wins.
Yes, small wins, we hope the market, as we said earlier, and we keep saying, investors take advantage of the low prices.
Yeah, but Anne Agbaje was our first guest. She's so confident that investors are taking advantage.
Oh, well.
She's so confident
that investors are taking advantage. Well, there's mixed reactions in the market.
We don't see the numbers yet anyway.
Market sentiments are still negative.
Yes.
We saw 8 gainers yesterday, just 8 gainers.
Just 8, yes.
And 17 losers.
Very,
so
very negative.
Sentiments are not
very negative
optimistic
market
as we hope it should be. So we saw 0.15% uptake yesterday's trading session. Markets, all share index is still at 44,000 level, market cap 24 trillion naira mark. But we did see the market movers who pulled the market yesterday. MTN Nigeria, that was the mover that, that shook the market yesterday. It was up 1.28%. We also saw Lafarge 2.73%, and Aldova was up 2.19%. And that MTN Nigeria added 2.50 naira to its share price yesterday. That really moved the market. Now look at the volume and value. The turnover yesterday, we saw volume was really low, 72 million units, about 72 million units of shares traded yesterday. However, value was up 2.17 billion naira, and deals lower than 3,000, just above 2,800 deals yesterday. And we're hoping that markets, investors take advantage of the low prices, as I was saying earlier, and buy the deep right now and pull the market up. We saw NASD, the unlisted market, was unchanged yesterday from the opening numbers, from the closing numbers on Friday. It was the index was at 729 points. The market cap is still at 960 billion naira. Now we're going to bring in Phil Anegbe. He is a head of research at Cardinal Stone Securities, to give us more insights what's going on in the market. Good morning, Phil.
Thank you very much for having me.
Phil, we're still seeing the markets pulled yesterday up 0.15%. We're seeing investors starting to get, into the groove of buying stocks in the market. But do you think that the Q3 earnings result that we are still expecting, we're still seeing results coming in, trickling in as they come? Do you think a post-earnings miss might be an opportunity? There's a weakness in the post-earnings, might be an opportunity for long-term investors?
Yeah, certainly misses present entry opportunities, even though the at current levels, the valuations look very attractive. We still think that earnings should be mixed across the markets, and that will provide entry opportunities into some stocks that have sound fundamental. Specifically, there will be slight pressures in sectors like consumer goods due to cost. Right, I think for Dangsem, there were reported issues of a shutdown in one of their, I think their biggest plants in the country. So all of these are likely to actually influence earnings releases, and that may result in some sort of misses that may open up attractive entry opportunities for strategic investors.
So what are the stocks that we're looking at now? Some numbers are coming in quite strong. Some are lower than expected. It's more like investors are getting drowsy in the market, if I'm going to say, with these numbers, and still wondering what's going on with them. But what would you say are your stocks, well, the picks you have for the week? What should investors be looking at? What are the stocks that are strong, investors should look at, and they should trade or fade?
Yeah, in terms of stocks to look at from a strategic or fundamental standpoint, we still think that there are juicy names in the non-bank space, like WAPCO. WAPCO received material beating following the news that broke out about its parents and the issue and the fine that was levied on it. That sort of actually drove negative sentiments and opened up juicier opportunities to invest in WAPCO. I would like MTN. The story of data support is still very strong, and then it has proactively tried to influence NIMC registrations to make sure that subscriber base actually begin to tick up. I think the story is positive for cement and telecoms, even though we realize that there are certain cost pressures that they still have to battle with on the back of currency unavailability or relative unavailability, and of course commodity price charge.
So, Phil, thanks so much for that insight. We're expecting more from the market. We're hoping the market sustains the positive uptake it had in yesterday's trading session. And we'll see that investors are probably gearing up, as market is open already, to take, advantage of these delicious stocks that you mentioned, Dangsem, MTN Nigeria. Yesterday pulled the market up. It was the biggest mover in the market yesterday. We're hoping that investors will continue to, see those drivers and take advantage of fundamentally sound stocks. Thanks so much, Phil Anegbe, for sharing your thoughts. So, Ini, that's what we have for the markets this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And we're hoping that, as I say, the markets will pick up.
Let's hope we've hit the rock bottom, and now we'll see positive moves.
Oh, yes.
Thanks a lot, Will. Let's move over to London now, where Juliana is standing by. Yesterday was very heated up in the UK as we saw Rishi Sunak emerging as the leader of the Conservative and to be announced as the Prime Minister. His meeting with King Charles. He has to deliver a speech today. I think we still have the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, still in the news, but Juliana has the details. Hey, Juliana, good morning. I hear you have a lot to tell us this morning.
Perhaps, Inni, good morning. We have just seen that Liz Truss, the outgoing Prime Minister, is meeting with King Charles III in Buckingham Palace to officially announce that she is dissolving her government. Of course, she shocked everybody, well, some people, by announcing her resignation live on television on Thursday during Biz Inc. Yesterday, there was a historic moment and an astonishing political comeback because the youngest Prime Minister in 200 years, the first British Asian Hindu Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, was announced as PM, coronated, some would say, because of course there wasn't really a contest. He got the overwhelming majority of Conservative MPs to support him, and he was crowned Prime Minister of Diwali on all days. Considering he is a Hindu, that must have, of course, been a big win for his family. He will meet King Charles III today, any moment now, as soon as Liz Truss exits, and we are expecting him to deliver a speech, his first speech as Prime Minister, on the steps of Downing Street at 11:30. And to be honest with you, Inni, I think that's really where the honeymoon period ends for Rishi Sunak. He is facing an incredibly daunting intro, in fact, more daunting than what was received by Liz Truss just about 50 days ago. He is certainly going to inherit a recession. He is likely on the 31st of October going to be co-signing a pretty serious cut to public spending. We know there is a big black hole in our coffers that needs to be filled. So we are possibly expecting an announcement of higher taxes. People are not going to like that. And then, of course, the winter of discontent. There is striking across all sectors taking place at the moment. Double-digit inflation, consumer confidence low, business optimism very, very low. And he's going to have to try and, you know, thread all of these things together, as well as the issues within the Conservative Party of infighting. I have been listening to a couple of grassroots Conservatives who were hoping they would get a chance to vote for Liz Truss's successor. Of course, we didn't get to that stage because Penny Mordaunt, the leader of the House of Commons, she pulled out at the last minute just to allow Rishi Sunak to be coronated. So it isn't going to be easy, but I think it's important that we do celebrate the fact that he is the first British Prime Minister of colour, which is a great win for ethnic minorities in this country.
Yes, I guess so, Juliana. But as you said, he does have his hands full, and the honeymoon ends very, very soon for him because the economic realities are not friendly, and they're not looking at the colour of your skin. You know, but I mean, we know that Liz Truss did talk about, as a strategy, offer a lot of mouth-watering tax cuts. Do we know what strategy he's coming up with? Do we know what he's using, you know, to put on the table as his style, you know, as he comes into the office?
It's a good question, and I think we may get a glimpse into the response when he delivers his first speech as PM at what we think will be about 11:30 a.m. He did address the nation yesterday, but it's a very, very short speech. A lot of people have dug lots of holes into it because it was very short, very robotic, but I believe that he was obviously shocked and stunned because just 7 weeks ago he was forced to sit and smile next to Liz Truss when she was announced winner of that bruising contest during the summer. But I think it's fair to say that Rishi Sunak is likely to stick with the 2019 manifesto. There was so much talk of the general election just a couple of days ago. That is less likely, though still very much on the cards. But he is going to have to win back the support of the general public. And we know, of course, they are desperate for a general election because all polls indicate that if there was one tomorrow, the Labour Party would win head and shoulders. So I think the levelling up agenda, which was spelled out by Boris Johnson, which is basically taking all the wealth that has been stored up and shored in the southeast up to the northeast of the country, which has been deprived and hasn't seen much infrastructure or investment for years and years and years. But how is he going to do that when we are heading into a recession? Things are difficult. You know, we did have COVID, we did have the lockdowns, you know, we've got a war on our doorstep, the global economy is contracting at the moment. So it is going to be tough. Don't expect Rishi Sunak not to be tough on immigration. He will be. He has said that he does think the Channel crossing crisis needs to come to an end. He wants to reduce migration into this country. He is a low tax typical Tory, although he doesn't think he can implement some of those decisions until the end of Parliament, which, if it goes according to his plan, would be 2024. So we're not really sure about this Rishi we're going to get. Of course, he did have the keys to the Treasury for a long time, and the economy is the main objective. So clearly, he is knowledgeable in that area. But is he going to be able to please the vast majority of the electorate? Absolutely not. But I think the most important thing for him is to please party members who are still very bruised, and not all of them are supporting him, but he does have the support from the majority at the very least.
All right, Juliana, well, thank God by 1:30, when we'll be on for Business Incorporated, he would have given his speech, so we'll have a clearer picture of what he plans. So
yeah.
we'll, Yvonne, have to drill in on that with you at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Thanks, Annie.
All right, so back here in Nigeria, we'll drill into the crypto market with Laddie Williams. Hey, Laddie.
Hi, Annie. Well, talking about Rishi Sunak again.
Don't tell me he trades crypto.
No, there's chatter that he is pro-crypto. Yeah,
so you expect more crypto activities in the UK?
Maybe. We don't know what kind of Rishi we're going to get.
Or you expect more regulation.
Exactly, but I know he's big on central bank digital currencies, but we'll see.
All right.
The crypto community is already talking about it.
It's just a couple of hours away.
Exactly. And looking at the market now, we're seeing extreme fear deeper. The market has gone deeper into extreme fear today at 20 points. We was better yesterday, but we're seeing 20 points. Now let's look at the market cap for the total crypto space. They're $932.41 billion. It's up by 0.01%. That's a marginal increase there. Volume traded up 3.05%. Bitcoin dominance 39.81%. Let's look at the price of Bitcoin at 8 a.m. this morning. We see it's at $19,352. Down by 0.01%. Volume traded $27.12 billion. And we see Ethereum there, $1,349, up 0.48%. So we're seeing some buying activity in the market, even though the market is still extremely fearful this morning. Let's bring in Michael Inaji now to bring us up to speed. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I was talking earlier with Tini that there's chatter that Rishi Sunak is pro-crypto. What do you think?
Yeah, so Richie's a former Goldman man, so he has experience working in finance, and ultimately we've seen him make multiple comments that have been favorable to crypto, from the spearheading of when he was the chancellor of the Exchequer. He had some pro crypto initiatives that he was trying to implement. But unfortunately, it's he just hasn't had enough time for us to know exactly how his stance is going to be. But just from his background, he's worth almost $1 billion, and his finance background, working in the city. We really do believe that at the end of the day, he is a pro crypto candidate. But at the end of the day, we have to see what he says. But one of the biggest problems people are having around him being elected is, at the end of the day, how long will his government last? He can be pro-crypto as much as he wants, but if he's only there for 2-3 months, there's not really much that he could change. But he definitely is pro-crypto, but the problem is, how long does his government actually last?
All right, so I guess it remains to be seen, how much lasts. But let's look at the markets now. What are you seeing, for the rest of the week? I'm seeing volatility already in the market right now.
Yeah, so I think on all the technical indicators, especially on the weekly, it looks like Bitcoin could make some kind of recovery in the next couple of weeks. Not to say that a new bull market's going to start or anything, but just on, for instance, the MACD on a weekly, it looks to be bottoming off. So it looks to be like reversing momentum into the bullish side. So I think there is going to be a rally for probably maybe it gets up to the 23s, 24,000 for Bitcoin. But there's going to be a rally. But at the end of the day, that's just based off the weekly indicators. The momentum needs to choose a direction at this point. We've seen something like this back in 2018. Bitcoin had a 1 to 5% trading band for the better part of 3 to 4 months. And we're in that same trading band now. And in the end of 2018, we saw a violent breakdown to the downside. So going forward with this kind of tightening volatility, we usually what happens is it's a very big impulsive breakout to one side. And so most likely it's going to be a big breakout to the upside because most people are expecting the downside, and we know, crypto never goes how everyone thinks it's going to go. So I think with those weekly indicators turning around, especially with the momentum, I really do think there's a chance we could see some kind of explosive recovery to the top side. Doesn't mean that we're out of the bear market, but it does mean maybe there's there's relief coming. Especially with the Hang Seng index up almost 6% this morning.
All right. Well, we'll see if it goes to the upside or the downside. We know the market never fulfills expectations of traders. Thank you so much, Michael Nnaji, financial market analyst.
Thank you, lady. Have a great morning.
Thank you. All right, Ine, so up or down, we don't know, but it's going to happen.
Yeah,
one is going to happen.
Yeah, but you know, I think one thing that Michael brought out is fine. Interesting that Rishi is pro-crypto,
right.
But we don't know how long the Conservatives have to stay in power.
Right.
You know, because, I mean, if he has a short time, he has bigger problems
I know
him.
crypto would be low on the list.
Very low on the list, not
issues.
priority at all. When
Exactly.
you have energy crisis, cost of living crisis, and all of that, and then, of course, the politics part of it. But we'll watch and see.
We'll be watching.
And see what happens. Thank you so much, Laddie. All right, so that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of this 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations. I know that something out there dropped on you, and we'll do it again tomorrow. But before tomorrow, 1:30, Will Ibong will be here to give you updates from the world of business. One thing you want to really watch out for at 1:30 is that speech. After the speech by Rishi Sunak, we'll hear his strategy to deal with the economic crisis going on in the UK. And then I'll be at 10 p.m. for stock market reports. And I'll see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. God's grace. Have a profitable business day.